welcome back to my channel. My name is Danielle and I'm the owner of Damn Fancy Creations and the Drunk Flamingo Glitter. If you guys are new to my page, I do want to let you know that all of my groups and links are posted in the description below in case you guys want to check them out. I have had these eraser blanks for probably 6 months or more and just have not gotten around to creating anything with them. So I finally sat down and thought that I would do one with here is going to be covered in today's tutorial, and then one with glitter and a decal. If you guys have questions about products I used or steps that I did, please feel free to ask down below or in any of my groups on Facebook and I will come back and answer them. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get started on this tutorial and I hope you guys enjoy. Alright y'all, so here's everything we're going to be using. This is the pack of erasers I got from Amazon. I will link it below. These erasers are pretty raw wood. It does not appear to have a finish on it. If the erasers you get have some sort of protective finish or gloss finish, you will need to sand that off beforehand. We are going to be using these 2 decals that you see pictured here, as well as my Spring Bee sample vinyl kit. These are all the patterns that are included in the sample kit. I created these sample kits for things such as erasers or pens where maybe you did not need a full sheet of vinyl or wanted to cut in to your full sheet of vinyl. So then you just have these little 6x6 squares that you can use for erasers or pens, keychains, all sorts of things. So we are going to start by taking the eraser, turning it head down, and I am just going to grab my pencil and trace along the outer edge. So I'm tracing the full rectangle, but when I cut out the rectangle, I am going to cut it a little smaller. The reason why I'm going to cut it just slightly smaller is so that when we apply the UV resin, it's going to completely seal that vinyl in and you're not going to have any of this vinyl overhanging the edge of the erasers. So I'm just speeding this up just a little bit. And I'm just measuring to see how my cut is so far. So this is right on the edge. So I am going to take my actual paper cutter and I am just going to trim about 1/4 of an inch off on one of the longer sides and one of the shorter sides. So that way you guys can see just the tiniest amount of wood showing. So I am cutting this piece of vinyl just like I would on my tumblers. I just cut a little bit of the backing off so I can line everything up, make sure it's straight. Then I'm going to push down that side and then remove the rest of the backing. So that way everything is nice and straight. So you guys can kind of see in the video, there's just a little tiny bit of the wood outline. This will help to ensure that the UV resin is going to attach to the wood and not just the vinyl. So I just use my heat gun just to smooth everything down, get that vinyl nice and attached well. And then we are going to be ready for our first layer of UV resin. My UV resin of choice is CC DIY's, and I'm just going to use the smallest amount of white linen. This was one of the glitters in March's Flock Box. This is a really pretty creamy opal. I just mixed a tiny amount in. I'm just putting it on there to see if I need to add more, which I did, but I didn't want to add too much and then completely cover the vinyl with glitter. I just wanted a little shimmer. So I'm just spreading it out with my popsicle stick just to make sure that I have enough. And then I'm just going to take the finger of one of my gloves and spread it nice and smooth. I'm making sure that all of the vinyl is covered and that resin is going over the vinyl and covering the wood outline. But I am not bringing this resin over the sides. I do not tape off my sides. I just don't see a need for it. Typically, if you bring the resin to the edge of the surface that you're working on, it's not going to overflow. It will typically just stay right on that edge. So I cured this for about 2 minutes. I did turn it halfway through just to make sure that every surface was getting touched evenly by the light. Then we're going to take our decal. This is my Be Kind decal. All of my decals are opaque, so you can apply them to any color. I'm just going to center it as best I can on my eraser. And then we're going to peel that off. And then we're going to apply our last layer of clear UV resin. So if you did not want a glitter background, then you could have went ahead and applied the Be Kind decal directly on top of the honeycomb. But I kind of wanted that contrast of the background being sparkly and the decal not being sparkly. So I like to apply a decent amount of UV resin just to the center of my decal, and then I use a silicone tool to bring that UV resin right up to the edge. Again, we're just bringing it to the edge. We are not pulling it over the edge. And I would go slow. This video is sped up a little bit, but y'all can see I'm just kind of tapping that UV resin, bringing it to the edge. I'm not just moving it a lot. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm just kind of tapping it to the edge. And if you need to pop bubbles, you can pop them very, very quickly with a torch. I've done it multiple times. I did not have my torch up here, so I did not pop bubbles. Typically, you won't get a lot of bubbles with UV resin, but sometimes I will grab a needle and dip it in some alcohol or acetone and just touch the bubbles that I see with a pointed edge. And usually they're only visible if it's over black, which is why I'm just focusing on the letters. And then I like to kind of check my edges again. And then we're going to cure this for another 2 to 3 minutes. And then this one is complete. So even with this being sped up, y'all can see how quick and easy I was able to create this eraser from start to finish. So now we're going to work on our second one. This one is going to have glitter, paint, and a decal. So I'm going to start by base painting the eraser. I'm just using ColorFix paint in white. It is by Artistry. Their ColorFix paint does have a glitter glue built in, but for the purpose of this video, I'm just using it for paint. So I'm going to do 2 layers because I really want the glitter that I'm using to have a really nice bright white base. So I will just dry this a little bit with my heat gun. And when that is dry, I'm going to apply another layer of ColorFix paint. I applied a little too much. So I just scraped some off and put it back in the bottle. And I'm just kind of carefully painting the edges. I don't want this paint to get on the outside of the eraser. So I'm just wiping off anything that I can see before it dries. Then I'm going to dry this with my heat gun. And I am going to make sure that this is really good and dry before we apply our UV resin, because I don't want that to cause any problems later down the road. So next what I'm doing is taking one of my scrap rags, and I just got a little bit of alcohol on the rag, and I'm just really cleaning up those edges. And I don't know if you can tell in this video, but there is just a slight wooden edge also on this eraser, just like the last one. It's just a little bit smaller, but it's just because I cleaned that area off with my rag. So these are the glitters that we are going to be using today. I'm using Pink-a-colada, Kinky Blow Pop, Mojito, and Topo Chico. So I'm going to apply this glitter with UV resin. I am just adding the smallest amount, spreading it all over our eraser top. And then we're going to sprinkle on our glitter. If you are going to use UV resin to apply your glitter, you will need to make sure that your glitter is translucent or mostly translucent. That way the light will be able to penetrate through the glitter flakes and cure that UV resin underneath. If you use an opaque metallic glitter, that UV light is not going to be able to penetrate those glitter flakes in order to cure the resin. So it is very important what type of glitter you choose when you are using UV resin to attach the glitter to your project. And I chose these colors because I thought they went really well with the decal that I'm using. It had a lot of pink and green on it. And when you get your last color on, you are going to want to clean up those edges. We don't want any flakes kind of hanging off the edge and cure that way. So I am just wiping along the edge just to get any of those overhanging glitter flakes. And then I'm just going to use the back of my vinyl and just press it down. So any chunky flakes that were kind of sticking up are going to be pressed down now, which will make it easier when we go to apply our layer of UV resin on top of the glitter. So we are going to cure this for 2 minutes. And then we are going to apply our first coat of clear UV resin on top of this glitter. And I know a lot of y'all are probably thinking that is a lot of UV resin, and you're right, it is a lot of UV resin to use for this particular project, but it just kind of depends on your time span. I mean, if you need teacher gifts tomorrow or the day after, this is a great way to get them done super quickly. I probably did both of these erasers from start to finish in less than an hour. But obviously you could use glitter glue to apply your glitter. You could use regular epoxy to do your top coats. But if you're short for time, then UV resin is a great way to get your project done quickly. And if you guys have followed my channel for a while, y'all know that I love to show different ways to do the same or similar projects. Just so you guys have options and you can choose whichever is best for you. So y'all can see that I'm applying this UV resin the same way that we did the other one. I'm just bringing that UV resin right up to the edge. So I'm just getting really like up close and personal with it just to make sure that all those little edges are covered well. And then I'm going to cure this again for another 2 minutes or so. So now that this is cured, I am going to take just an old nail file and I'm going to buff those edges. Since we used glitter for this eraser, it's not going to be as smooth as our first eraser that was just a thin sheet of vinyl. So there may be some glitter grains that you can feel, but you can easily buff them out with an eraser, with a sanding block, a piece of sandpaper. And it was really just the edges that I could feel. The middle of the tumbler, or not tumbler, the middle of the eraser was pretty smooth. And I just grabbed some water and wiped all the sanding dust off. A lot of times alcohol will react with UV resin and make it tacky. So do not clean your UV resin projects with alcohol. So now that that is good and dry, we are going to take our decal. Again, it is a white back. And I am just going to center this as best I can. And I think this is turning out so cute. I love the colors with this decal. And the decals, this one in particular, I have a composition book one and then a split pencil decal. I size them specifically for erasers, so the other two may be slightly smaller than what you would put on a tumbler, but I do list the sizes in the listing. And I am just getting a little bubble out of there. I just poke a tiny, tiny little hole and just squeeze the air out from underneath. And now we are going in with our final coat of UV resin. Again, we're going to apply it the same way we did all of our other coats. I start with applying some in the center. And then using my silicone tool, I just bring it right back to the edge. And you can obviously use a gloved finger if you want to spread this out. I personally like to use silicone tools. Sometimes when I use a gloved finger, I feel like the UV resin gets uneven in certain spots. But when you apply it in the center and then kind of let it spread out, I feel like I get a better, more even coverage. So again, if you see any air bubbles after you apply this layer, you can pop them. If not, you will be ready to cure this. The final cure, I usually let it cure for 3 to 4 minutes, especially on a project this big. I think I had a little drip, and yes, you can just wipe the drips away. And once that is cured, you will be finished. So here is how this one turned out. Here is the original one. I think they turned out super cute. Here are some finished pictures of them. I think these would make great little teacher gifts. If you guys decide to try one out yourself, be sure to post in my tutorial group or the Drunk Flamingo so I can see what you guys create, because I love looking at all of y'all's creations. If y'all enjoyed this tutorial or learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Don't forget to catch the next video coming up that was picked just for you. As always, if you're looking for more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group, my Drunk Flamingo glitter group, or my Damn Fancy tribe. All are linked in the description. Thanks for watching!